Hello to all my people, and if you're watching live, checking us out on YouTube, or listening on your favorite podcast provider, you are most definitely my people. Welcome to another episode of Botched and Chair Shots. I'm your host, a chef by trade and a mark by choice. I am the Will Gray, and joining me tonight is the eater of pizza. He is Mr. Nice Guy, the innovator. He is Vinnie Massaro. Vinnie, thanks for coming on chatting about some wrestling, brother. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing well. How are you?
Great, man. It's been a nice, chill, relaxing night. You're the last of it for me, and then it's just easy street from here, getting ready for bed and starting it all over tomorrow, man. What about you? Everything good?
Yeah, it's really rainy here in California. For some reason, there's a flood warning and all kinds of stuff. So I was actually taking a nap because it's I cleaned up the yard a little when I got home and it's just really crappy weather outside. So I'm just gonna take a nap and I'm gonna do a podcast and then let's see. I should go to the gym, but I don't know. We'll see. I might be tired, but it's just really crappy. I don't know how to describe it. It's literally got flood warning. That's how bad it is right now.
Tennessee is one of those places where uh, we don't get a winter, so to speak. It goes from everything's nice and pretty
Hmm.
and green to everything's dead, and then it's cold and wet for like 4 or 5 months, and then everything starts turning green again. And then you throw tornadoes on top of it, and you're just like, screw this, I'm done. I don't want any part of it. Tennessee's good for like summer and spring, and that's it. I
Yeah.
always start these
Hopefully I
conversations.
can visit. Hopefully I can come visit in the summer. Then that sounds like a good place to be in the summer.
It's nice, gorgeous in the summer, man. This conversation, I always try to start it the same way. Like I was saying before we came on air, there's always an icebreaker question for you. I was raised in the American Southeast in Nashville, so around the late '80s, early '90s, I came up watching the end of the NWA days, the early WCW days. So I'm always fascinated to hear everybody's story about where they started watching when they were a young wrestling fan. So, like, what were your early exposures like?
Well, so I was born in Sicily, and for some weird reason, they what they would do is they had the Tiger Mask cartoon because they would show a lot of like Japanese animes on on the Italian network. So what they would do is they would show the Tiger Mask cartoon because it was really popular back then, and it got so popular they just decided to play New Japan Pro Wrestling afterwards. So that was my first. Like I remember being 4 years old and just watching like Tiger Mask and like Riki Chosu and Inoki, and just watching all those on like Italian. There was like a I forgot what it was called, but there was a guy. He would come on. He would just show like the best of, it was like a, it was kind of like it wasn't like the weekly television, but it was like the best of that you missed or whatever. And he would show that. When I came here to the United States, I wanted to watch wrestling. I wanted to keep watching wrestling, and then there was WWF on. Kind of didn't like it. It wasn't my style. Obviously, from watching New Japan, it wasn't really too good. Then I started watching the NWA, and that's when I noticed, Great Muda was there, and I recognized him. And I started watching a lot more NWA, and just fell in love with like the Road Warriors and Dusty Rhodes was like my favorite, and Terry Funk. Those are all my favorite wrestlers. So I started watching NWA for the most. That was like my first American version of professional wrestling. Well, so New Japan to NWA was like my very first, and then like yeah, and then WCW took over, and then I think after that I stopped watching wrestling for a bit.
Just out of curiosity, I interviewed Rocco Garzia. He is an Italian independent wrestler. He had great things to say about Italian independent wrestling. Can you speak at all on that right now? Do you know what the Italian scene is like in Italy anymore?
No, I really haven't. I haven't really noticed because when I left way before I even got into wrestling, so I don't even know what I do know there's like IWA Italy. That's a very good promotion, and I think um, from what I understood, from some of my friends that are over there, it's getting better now. It was for a while there, it was really bad. They didn't really like wrestling too much. It wasn't considered like one of the top things to do. But now it's getting a lot better. There's a lot more wrestlers. There's a lot more wrestling options. A lot more schools. I'm hoping actually to go in the summer, and because my parents live over there, so it'd be nice if I can go visit them and then maybe go wrestle a couple of places in Rome and wherever else they might have it.
So let's kind of fast forward a little bit now. When you decided, okay, I want to get into training, what was that process like? After you've immigrated over to the States now, you're here in the United States. What was the beginning process like when you decided to jump into a school?
So I did, like I said, stop watching wrestling for a bit when I got to like the high school. I kind of stopped watching wrestling altogether because it wasn't really my style. Plus, I don't think it was that good at that point either. Um, it was kind of like the low times. It was like the early '90s, '92, '93, '94. It just wasn't too good. It was a lot of Hogan and stuff like that. So I stopped watching for a bit. And then I think my friend, me and my friend were always like wrestling fans. So we were like talk. We would like play the video games. We would get Japanese tapes and Japanese video games, and we would watch those. So he told me, he's like, "Hey man, there's this new promotion that's starting up, and it's crazy. They're insane. We gotta watch it. It's from Philadelphia. We gotta get some videos of it. And then so we started watching ECW. We started getting the tape trading, and just blew my mind. You know what I mean? I was just like, what the hell is this? This is the greatest thing I've ever seen. And I just fell in love with ECW again. And then so the only way to really know to get any kind of news with ECW back then was to kind of just go on the message boards with like AOL, and
I remember
just
those days
anything on
well.
the yeah. So we used to go on AOL chat boards and message boards and just try to like figure out like what Tommy Dreamer and Raven were doing, and like what the Pit Bulls and everything was doing. So we started doing that, and then we saw an advertisement for like a school, a show that they were doing in Hayward, California, and it was like an indie show. And it was like, hey, if anybody likes ECW, the hardcore, we're doing our own version of it. It's called APW Gym Wars. So we're like, it was like $5. It was like 20 minutes from our house. We're like, fuck, let's just go. You know what I mean? Why not? So we go down there, and like Spike Dudley's there, Crash Holly's wrestling, Mike Modest, Vic Grimes. You know what I mean? And we're just like, there's like 10 people in the audience, and we were just like, this is the greatest thing ever. And Roland Alexander, he goes on like during intermission, he's like, hey, if you want to become a pro wrestler, you can join our school. And I'm just like, what? What? I like I couldn't even like put my mind that I could just be like any random guy can just be. I thought like you had to be like chosen, like oh hey you're
You look
chosen
like
to
a wrestler. You come do this.
right. You have to come, like literally. He was just like anybody can join. I'm like fuck, all right. But back then it was different. Back then anybody can join. Doesn't mean everybody could could stay join. You know what I mean? That was anybody would join. He would take their money and just get beat up, and I did. I got beat up. I was supposed to, you had to be 18 to join. I told him I was 18, but I was like 16 and a half. And I just kept getting beat up. They would just beat me up every month, every week, just beat me up. And they're like, "Hey, if he doesn't come back, that's I'm okay with it." And they were just beat the shit out of me. But my dumb ass kept coming back, and I'm 25 years later, I'm talking on a podcast. That's the story.
So, longevity, a hell of a career. 25 years in the business is tough for any business, but specifically pro wrestling to keep it going. This might be a loaded question for you, but looking back to where you were at the late 90s, the dawning of the Attitude Era and everything that was happening in wrestling then, when you broke into the business versus where we're at now in 2023. And like I said, kind of a loaded question here, but that's a lot of time, a lot of wrestling has happened since then. What's the biggest change that you've noticed personally since when you started in the late 90s versus where we're at now?
Um, Honestly, it's to me, it's more. The biggest change is there's more opportunities to do your own stuff. Because back then, if you were an indie guy, you would make like $100, if that. Um, and you had to get signed to make any kind of money. Um, nobody knew who you were. If you're an indie wrestler, you might as well were just like you know, worked at McDonald's. Like nobody knew who you were. Fast forward to now, I mean, I'm not signed. Yeah, I did Lucha Underground for a few years, but I'm not signed. I'm making lots of money. There's lots of people that know me. I get stopped all the time during, where I'm at, I go, oh my, like, oh, Vinny, let me take a picture. So, that part is good. I think and I wish more wrestlers would realize that if you work hard and you hustle, you can just be as popular, make, as much money. I mean, obviously not like, I'm not talking about, like Stone Cold Steve Austin type money, but you can make a living. I remember when I first started wrestling, my goal was to make a living in pro wrestling. Right now, if I wanted to, I could just wrestle for a living. But I also like having stuff, and I also live in California, so I have a normal job because
That makes everything a little bit more expensive. Just adding that
living in
one word
California, having
California in
I
there just makes everything more
listen.
expensive.
If I lived in an apartment and I just lived within my means, I'm sure I could do it with just the wrestling. But I own a home. I like having nice cars. I like buying stuff. I like going on vacation. So I have a side job. And basically, like my wrestling is just my FU money, like my side hustle money, and I use that to just buy whatever the hell I want, which is I prefer. And then my regular job, I pay for bills.
For sure. Grown man boys, grown man toys, right? Like if you hustle
Right,
to get what you want. I mean, that's the best way to look at it. One of the
right.
things that go into that longevity of a career like that is the continual evolution of a character. What are some of the ways you've kept, Vinnie Massaro fresh over all these years to be able to stay, to keep getting booked and to keep being popular and to keep getting shown up? Because one of the hardest things in wrestling to do, right, is to be a consistent draw. And when you've been able
Sure,
to
of
do it for
course.
20 plus years, like what were some of the things you did to stay fresh in the business?
So, like one of my favorite wrestlers of all time is Terry Funk. The thing that I love about Terry Funk is that he will, go to New Japan, All Japan, and have just great scientific matches. Then he would go to IWA, Japan, and have a death match. Then he would go to NWA and just have a brawl with Ric Flair. Then he would go to ECW and do hardcore. Then he would go to WWF and do um, comedy wrestling. And he would just do a bunch. He was just always, he wasn't like, these old timers who are like, oh, the business stinks, everybody sucks. I'm just gonna keep doing, you know, to me, I always give the advice to all my students. It goes, listen, you could be two types of wrestler. You could be Terry Funk, or you could be Ole Anderson. All right, there's a big difference in those two people. They're both great wrestlers. They're both great minds. One got stuck on his ways, and the business went by him, and the other one kept going and kept evolving, and became one of the most loved wrestlers of all time, and still has a career. Shit, I don't know, like 30 something years, 40. Who knows how long he's been wrestling? One of the greatest wrestlers of all time. I would personally rather be compared to Terry Funk instead of Ole Anderson.
I think either one of them would be a good, but having your explanation, you're like, I could understand that. And you talk about somebody
As a
who
pro, yeah, as a pro wrestler, you would rather Ole Anderson is a great person to be.
great
He
wrestler,
was a
great
great
booker,
wrestler,
he had his
great
career,
great
right?
wrestler, great. He had a career, but also he had a lot of chances to better a lot of things, and he did just decide don't not to do it. Terry Funk, on the other hand, I believe he just kept going. You know what I mean? Like Ricky Morton now, and even Arn Anderson. You know what I mean? He's still going. And with those people. So I believe, Terry Funk to me is like I always like, looked up to Terry Funk because he did it all. He could wrestle anywhere. He could wrestle in Mexico, and the same thing. I've wrestled in Mexico. I've wrestled in Japan. I've done lucha libre. I've done regular comedy wrestling. I've done TV wrestling. I've done like, strong style. I've done hardcore death matches, and I've done it all, and that's the kind of career I want. If you want to be one dimensional and be really good at that one thing, I'm not hating you for it. But to me, to have the kind of longevity, um, is you got to be Terry Funk. You got to be able to adapt.
That's the perfect way to describe it. When I talk to people who may not know who Funk is, I describe him as the person that could wrestle in the 70s, he could wrestle in the 80s, he could wrestle in the 90s, and he could wrestle in the 2000s. And all 4 decades, he was able to get himself over successfully. And it was
Yep,
because he was
100%.
constantly able to evolve to fit the needs of the crowd in whatever time period or era he was wrestling in. So listening to you describe it, I'm like, hell yeah. Like it makes absolute complete sense. Speaking on your Lucha Libre background, you mentioned your Lucha Underground background. You also crossed paths in XPW with, in some cases, one of the Luchador goats in Psychosis, and then you wrestled another AAA All Star and CMLL guy, Damian Cese. XPW Merry Christmas. Kind of what was it like? I know, a lot of people compare wrestling to dancing. You've got ballroom dance and jazz and everything. In wrestling, you've got hardcore and traditional and strong style and lucha style. Are you super comfortable working lucha style? Do you like working lucha over, say, a traditional, like just traditional wrestling match?
Yeah, no, I have no issues working lucha libre. I actually trained with Sky Day. He's one of the best lucha libre trainers. I've wrestled in Mexico City, at the Cathedral, Arena Mexico. I've wrestled for Lucha Underground. I've wrestled on many shows. There's a Lucha Libre promotion called Pro Wrestling Revolution here in California that I wrestle for a lot. Um, so I was perfectly okay with wrestling them. So when I found out I was wrestling Psychosis and Damien, of course, I was honored at first because there's absolute legends, and I was the rookie. If you believe me being 25 years, I was the rookie in there. So yeah, I mean, it was an honor, and I loved every minute of it.
Looking at that from your rookie year to now, one of the most important parts about being a professional wrestler is getting booked, right? Like being able to keep the job going. Do you think it's easier now in the age of technology we're in with all the social media and all the ways for instant gratification to get your work out there? Is it easier to get booked now than it was 15, 20 years ago?
Of course, and it's night and day. People, we used to have a thing in California where we used to say that we're on an island because California, there wasn't footage. You weren't able to get videos out to the East Coast, and in California you had you know two promotions, three promotions in NorCal, two promotions, three promotions in SoCal, one promotion in Oregon. You go to the East Coast, there's hundreds. You know what I mean? There was, all within two hours drive. I think that the main thing you guys, I think the main thing that people don't realize with the East Coast about West Coast is like we drive 6 hours and we're still in California. You mean
I
you
drive
guys
six
drive six
hours. I'll be in
hours,
3 states.
100%. So like literally, if I wanted, when you're in, when you're in your side of the country, you can drive, you can wrestle 3 states. You know what I mean? In Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Me, not so much. We can't really do that. Plus, it's a lot harder to get a flight from California. It's more expensive. Um, so yeah, back then it was damn near impossible to try to get noticed. So we did, it was a lot of hustling. It's a lot of making videotapes and sending it out, mailing it out. Nowadays, honestly, like I can wrestle. I wrestled Ricky Shane Page on Saturday, and everyone saw the videos and the pictures of it. So and I already got hit up, for a new booking for it. You know what I mean? I was on AEW Dark, which isn't even gonna be on till like next week, but people took pictures, and I already got a booking out of it. So of course it's way easier nowadays than the way it used to be.
So let's talk about him, Ricky Shane Page, man. You've just recently culminated with a huge no DQ match. When you build a story like this, and you guys have had a chance to work multiple times over the last few months, every time you wrestle somebody, does it just get easier and easier and more comfortable the more you work with them?
Yeah, it does get a little bit easier, but it also gets harder because you can't just have the same
You
match.
got to keep it
You know what I mean?
fresh,
You
right?
can't. You got to keep it fresh, and then you start, and because you get comfortable with that person, you're like, hey, let's try this thing, and let's try this, and it gets crazier, and the risk factor gets a little bit higher, and the difficulty gets a little bit higher, and then yeah, you try to you take some risk because you feel comfortable in the ring with that person. You don't try to play it safe.
You also brought it up. You had a chance to do some AEW dark work. What was that like, getting that call and stepping up for the guys down in Jacksonville, so to speak?
No, it was amazing. It's so weird because I get to that, you know, it's like I've wrestled like 80% of all those people in the locker room, which is great, because I mean they're all indie wrestlers. A lot of them are from my time, so I've known all of them. I've met all of them.
They kind of
So
cut their
like,
teeth on
when
the
I
indies with you, right?
yeah, exactly. It's not like going to the WWE locker room where everyone's like, I'm like, oh crap, can I even go up and shake hands? Or I don't even know, but they come up to me because I've known them for years. So that part is very cool, and I appreciate all the friendships. They keep it real. They're not like, oh, I'm a signed guy, you're not a signed guy. You go over there, you go change by the water, I'll come get you. No, these guys, the AEW locker room is, you know, it's so amazing. Like they come up, they're on pay-per-views, they're making millions of dollars, they're on every TV, but they come up, still they're still friends because they started in the indies and they know how it is, and they know why I'm here. They know I'm trying to get a job, and they understand, but they know that, hey, this guy was, me and him, we met like 10 years ago when we were both trying to get a job, and they're friendly and everyone's the nicest person, and it's just they're trying to. It's honestly, it's like it was. I know I'm getting weird about it, but I honestly, it was like one of the best experiences that I've ever had in wrestling. Like on Wednesday, like everyone was just super nice and super supportive, and critiques and this and helpful, and it was just one of the best times I've ever had.
That's good to hear. I enjoy hearing about, one, not just success stories, but especially when guys start to break through and get to that level and get to the AEWs and stuff. Because I've covered indie wrestling for 2 years, so I've had lots of guys sit in your chair that have made it and got to work AEW and got to work do the WWE work, and I'm like, hell yeah! Anytime one of the boys make it, I get hyped for it. It's always exciting. One of the things I was looking over when I was doing my due diligence, researching some of the things about the eater of pizza, the bitch slap, the pink poodle. Like,
Oh yes.
where are the origins of your names and the moves? Like, what are you doing to
All
come up
right.
with the names for them?
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. Sorry, my sock is falling down. It's getting cold up in the garage. So the bitch slap. This is going to be a great story for all you nerds. For all of the move nerds. So the bitch slap is, for those of you who don't know, is the air raid crash. Or the white noise. For those of you who don't, kind of, those who, that's what that move is. So I did it, and as far as I know, I was the very first person to do that move. I did it at APW. It was a gym worse, and I did it. I did it. It was like 100 people, but at the time I was called a gigolo because it was like a joke. Like, hey, I get all the women, but I was like 19 years old, geeky, just look like shit. But so Christopher Daniels is there. It's like, hey, you know what? You should call that move. And I was like, what? He's like, you should call it the bitch slap. And I was like, fuck yes, let's call it the bitch slap. So he actually named it the bitch slap. And then a Pink Poodle was a strip club in San Jose. So of course, because it's kind of what I do is it's the Greens from Asbury Park, but I do a pump handle. So I was like Greens from the Pink Poodle because it's a strip club in San Jose. But
That's awesome. I
yeah,
like hearing the
yeah,
individual stories about it, but when I saw the name of the move was called the bitch slap, I was like,
the bitch slap.
I want to know
And
why.
yes, and as far and I know everyone's gonna be like, well, I thought Supernova invented the Kryptonite Crunch. No, he did not. In fact, if for all you side note for all the wrestling nerds, um, my trainer Michael Modest saw me do that move, and then a week later he had a WWE tryout and he used it. And if you guys ever seen Beyond the Mat, he does that move in Beyond the Mat, and then everyone's like, "What the fuck was that?" And it was like, "Well, that was the move that I did a week before, and I invented." So yes, I am the inventor of the bitch slap, aka Kryptonite Crunch, aka Air Raid Crash.
There you have it,
So
exclusive right here, ladies and gentlemen.
I want $5 to whoever uses it, because not everyone uses it. I don't know why. It's making a comeback.
I like that though, the origin stories of where they come from, because you've seen so many guys use it since. So explaining to it like, because think about something like the stunner. Like where did it come from? Austin
Right.
wasn't the first
Well,
person to do it.
you want to know? Well, I mean, okay, so all these moves either by accident or they're stolen from Japanese women's wrestling. Uh, so I'm gonna tell you I'll tell you the story of how I got that move because I was at APW and part of paying your dues is I was part of the boot camp. So like if you send me a letter. If you sent a letter to like APW saying I want to join the school, I would reply back. Well, every now and then we would get a videotape because from people who were doing backyard, it goes, "Hey, here's my backyard tape. I want to be able to. I want to come train at APW." Of course, we're like, whatever. So I remember watching. Me one time I was watching this tape. 'Cause sometimes it'd be funny, like people would cut promos. I'm like, why are you cutting a promo? Like that doesn't make any sense. But it was just funny. So this guy sent a video of his backyard, and he does. What he did is basically, like the what do you call it? You know the move that Orange Cassidy does? What is it called? The beach break?
Yeah.
So like he lift okay, but this guy lifted the guy up and he had him like his ass was like his head, his opponent's head was way below, and he just sat down and I was like, oh my god, he just fucking killed the guy. Right? And I was just like and I was like, if I can figure out how to do that, it'll be amazing. So at the time, the Death Valley driver was like fresh. Like Louis Piccoli was doing this, so like everyone was like, "Oh, dude!" Everyone was doing the Death Valley driver. So I was like, "All right, let me lift the guy up and let me grab his head,
Mm-hmm.
and then let me just drop down." So I was like, "Shit, I can do that." So that's how I came up with the move.
That's awesome. All right, Vinny. I think we've done all the damage we can do for one night, but can't get off that easy because I close all of my interviews with 5 random questions.
All right, random questions. Let's
All
go.
right. 1. What's the most embarrassing song on your playlist? Like your guilty pleasure.
Oh my god. Probably um Blackpink. I would think like I love Blackpink. I don't know why. I think it's you know. I would say Lady Gaga, but it's not so embarrassing. I'm not embarrassed by that. I love,
Nah,
but
I
I
think
think
everybody
Blackpink.
likes Lady Gaga.
Yeah, I think Blackpink by far is like everyone when like it comes randomly comes on, everyone's just like, "What? We were listening to like Metallica, you know, and like Slipknot, and now we're listening to Blackpink." I'm like, "Yes, Blackpink is awesome."
Do you play any video games?
I play tons of video games
Do you have a favorite video game then?
of all time. It honestly, it's either I'm a huge Zelda nerd, as you can tell.
Nice.
Uh, my all-time favorite of all the time, like just bar none, is Link to the Past, the Super NES version of Legend of Zelda. But Breath of the Wild is fucking amazing.
I love Breath of
I
the
mean,
Wild. I'm also a
I
Zelda
think
guy.
I think I play like Breath of the Wild and Link to the Past like at least once a year. Like it's like an old book that you play like I could play Link to the Past and like beat it in like 5 days. Breath of the Wild, I just every now and then I just like let me just play it and I just restart it from the beginning and just play everything
It's just so good
and
to
just pick it up.
explore. The map's so big. There's so
100%.
much to do. You can get in and just hunt for an hour.
I've never loved climbing a mountains before, like so much before in my life. I don't understand why. It's just like the most fun thing to do.
Are you looking forward to the second one that's coming out in a couple weeks?
Oh, it's gonna be amazing. It's gonna be amazing. Is it
uh,
coming out in a couple weeks?
yeah, I think it comes out in June. So not really a couple weeks, but yeah, it comes out this summer, I
I'm like
think.
a couple of weeks. I'm like, okay, what month are we in? Hold on,
Yeah,
we're
no,
in
that's
March.
how everything is just a couple weeks for me, no matter what time of year it is. But I think it's
I got
coming out this
scared.
summer. Yeah,
I'm like, I haven't even pre-ordered it. What the hell am I doing?
you're like, what about all my bookings in April and May? What the fuck just happened?
I'm gonna have to cancel all those. I'm in Breath of the Wild too.
All right, what's your hype song for a match?
Oh, okay. Probably Slipknot. Eyeless.
That's a great one. I'm a Slipknot fan. I liked their first 3 albums the best. They were my favorite. Slipknot's, Iowa, and Subliminal
By far,
Verses.
by
What is
far.
your favorite venue you've ever had a chance to wrestle in?
Ooh, that's a perfect. I mean, I know this is gonna sound so nerdy and cliche, but Kirk Hall. I mean, obviously, that's like, you know, that's that's I'm a humongous Japanese wrestling fan. So when I wrestled there, I started crying. Couldn't happen. But Arena Mexico is pretty damn good too.
Solid picks. Final one, number 5. What's your favorite finisher that isn't yours? Somehow you got two
Ooh,
that were wrestling related, so it's okay. Sometimes wrestling related. 5 random questions.
right, man. I think a finisher that's not my own. Man, that's a good one. I don't know. I always liked the Michinoku driver. That was like a cool like because you can just do it out of anywhere. You know what I mean? A good Michinoku driver is always cool to do. But you know, I wish I could honestly. You know what I wish I could. Well, you know what I wish I could do. I wish I could throw the black mask like Malachi Black. I wish I could fucking get my fat leg just to spin like that. I can't fucking do it. Like I will miss like by a million miles. But man, every time he does it, it's the fucking coolest thing ever.
I like good strong style, like the Kinshasa and the Black Mass, like good strong style
Yeah,
kicks. I think
I
always
just
look
man,
good when
man,
they're done right.
yeah, just that black mask just looks so fucking cool the way he does it.
And it looks
I
like he
don't
just
know.
rips their head off every time. That doesn't hurt.
I mean, half the time he does, and I respect it. I think you should. I think if you have like my snoring elbow, man, I'll tell you what, 2 out of 3 times I'm blasting you in the head.
I mean, honesty is the best policy. As long as they know it's coming, they can prep
It's
for it.
hey, I apologize, but I can't help it.
It's gonna happen, right? All right, Vinny. This is my favorite part of the episode, and the listener's favorite part as well, because I don't have to say anything. All you've got to do is plug your stuff, put yourself over, and tell everybody what you got coming up.
Wow. Well, okay. So the best way to get a hold of me is through Twitter at Snoring Elbow. I'm not cringe. Hopefully, hopefully I don't go cringe too much and go too crazy on my Twitter. Go on Snoring Elbow or Instagram at Vinnie Massaro. I'm wrestling pretty much every weekend from now until forever, God willing. Um, I have two promotions that I consider my home. One is West Coast Pro Wrestling. You can check them out. We have shows once a month on IDWTV, and then also Circle Six is one of my other home promotion. We have a lot of shows happening on WrestleMania weekend, almost too many, and so you can catch me WrestleMania weekend in LA. I'll be wrestling for about 3 to 4 days. Please come say hi, buy me a drink. Buy me a slice of pizza. I'm very friendly. I don't, I don't care who you are. I'll come say hi. But yeah, and honestly, if anybody out there, just support indie wrestling, man, because it's not the easiest thing. Especially once I delved into booking and doing the storylines and doing all that stuff. It's not as hard, it's not as easy as everyone thinks. You can't just get a ring in a building. It's like, hey, let's just slap on a fucking let's just hire Honking Talk Man and we'll sell out, the arena. Nah, it doesn't work like that. You actually need to do a little bit of work, a little bit of, so it's not as easy as everyone thinks. So please support local indie wrestling.
All right, Vinny, man. Well, I appreciate you stopping by and chatting about some wrestling with me.
I appreciate you, man.
For the Eater of Pizza, Vinny Massaro, I am the Will Gray. Thanks for stopping by and listening, my people.